Welcome, everyone, to the Visibility Strategies for Purpose-Driven Business Owners and Brands. This is our workshop. This is all about expanding your brand in front of new audiences, getting yourself, your brand, and your business on bigger stages, and some of the step-by-step approaches to getting yourself on podcasts and in the media. Because how do we even do this? And why does it really matter? Thank you so much for being here today. Really, the reason that we are all here is because we desire more visibility for our businesses, for our brands. And the way that I like to look at this is all about sharing powerful messages. It's about sharing our services with the people who need them most. It's about getting in front of new audiences because here at Visibility on Purpose, we think that is one of the smartest strategies to expand your brand. And it's also about getting on bigger stages. And if you are here, you are an impact-driven business owner. I always say it's not like you're selling McDonald's hamburgers out there, everyone. You are doing good work on the planet, and more people deserve to learn about your business and what you're doing. Now, what happens when we become more visible? This is not only about creating additional income streams, making more profit, making more money in your business, because if you're expanded in front of the right audiences, that can convert. But this is ultimately on a deeper level about more impact, right? You started a business for a reason. There's probably a story, an experience, an event, something that led you to the work that you're doing. And in your heart of hearts, you know that this work needs to get in front of more people. So how do we do that? So today is all about expanding your brand through these visibility strategies. And I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. But first, I'm going to introduce myself and my business partner, Lydia. So this is us. We are the co-founders of Visibility on Purpose. My name is Bridget Aileen Cisco. I am the circle bubble underneath Lydia. Lydia is on the top here. We are both New Jersey, born and raised. She now lives in Florida. I'm still here in New Jersey. We actually went to the same college and never met there. We found ourselves in this online business space a couple of years ago. She and her background in publicity and being a PR strategist, and me as a publisher. And we decided to come together a couple years ago and begin collaborating. So she would support some of my publishing clients, and we just both had the same mission of bringing light into dark spaces, whether it was the news, whether it was the media, and really shining light on the businesses that are here to impact change on the planet. I'm also a podcast host. I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher. I have a dog. I love trail running. I love cooking, nutrition. Lydia loves the beach. She is super adventurous, athletic, and has a heart of gold. And she's absolutely hilarious. So make sure that you follow us on Instagram. We're at Visibility on Purpose. You can also find us under our personal names. So a big thing before you ever go to introduce your business to the media or on podcasts or on stages, we always like to have some of these things nailed down before you ever go there, right? So maybe you're listening to this today and you've been published in a book or you are already an author. You might already be using social media to expand your brand. And when it comes to media, publicity, and press, as well as podcasts, we like to do some behind the scenes things first so that you feel really confident when you go to introduce your business to these brands. So we always start with this overall brand summary. And what do I mean by that? This is the simple things, right? You've done this before. What do you do? So what is your business? What is the name of your business? What do you call yourself? Who do you serve, right? Who are your people that are in need of your services, your products, your programs, your courses? What is the outcome or the results of when someone works with you? What can they expect, right? Why should they come to you? What are your programs? What are your products? Now, this is important because when you are thinking about introducing your brand, you want to have this zoom out moment where you say, yeah, what really is this brand? And how does this come off to the public? A lot of the times, if you've been running your business for a couple of years, you are used to just serving clients and you haven't had this moment to really take the step back and say, yeah, what does this business look like in the public eye? So start with an overall brand summary. This is going to be really refreshing and really reflective. Then you get to start to ask yourself, what differentiates my business, my brand, my work from other people? In Visibility on Purpose, we sometimes refer to this as unique differentiation, sometimes the it factor, sometimes the standout sparkle, but truly this is the piece of just human connection. So, what makes you different? What makes you stand out? And a lot of the times, it doesn't need to be this like flashy in your face thing. So, I'm going to ask you a couple questions here, and you can just start to reflect on this for yourself. How did you arrive here? What is your story? What modalities do you use in your business? Maybe you use Reiki, maybe you have different softwares or automations or programs or platforms that you use. Maybe you have past certifications or past experience. An example of this in one of our past rounds of Visibility on Purpose, which is our media training school, we had a student who had a background as a social worker. And it wasn't that she wanted to leave this whole social work aspect of her life behind, but how can she lean on that because that has depth and density in the public eye and still present herself as this new version? She now calls herself a self-love coach. So we branded her as a social worker gone rogue. And this helped her differentiate herself from other self-love coaches in the marketplace. So ask yourself, how did I arrive here? What background do I have? Do you have a, PhD? Did you have a completely other business before you started doing this? What makes you stand out? What are some of your natural gifts? For me, it's always been speaking. I'm also a speaker, so I love to support our Visibility on Purpose students with speaking and communication and messaging skills, and that's always just been natural for me. I didn't realize that people struggled to present themselves publicly. So what's always been there for you? What makes you unique? We already somewhat touched upon this, but your founder's story. So how did you get here? Because at the end of the day, our past experiences, the events, the challenges, the ups, the downs, the wins, the losses, the deaths, the challenges, the illnesses, that was my story, have led us exactly to where we are today. So can you lean on that a little bit? And it's important to have this nailed down because as someone who is a podcast host and has also been interviewed on many podcasts, it's important to understand how to give and reflect on your story in a way that makes sense and it's not all over the place. So this is why media training is important in the first place, and doing this work before you get on the stage or before you get on the podcast is important. How did you get here? What events invited you to get here, to start your business? Like, what was the truest moment that you decided to start the business? And maybe it wasn't just one, maybe it was a culmination of a number of moments. The next is really identifying topics you can speak on. So when it comes to podcasts, this is a great way to show value to the hosts, identifying some of the topics that you can speak on. Right. So for me, I love to speak about visibility strategies for purpose-driven entrepreneurs. I love to speak about how networking is the new advertising and how to expand your brand through getting in front of other people's audiences. I love to talk about Kundalini yoga and cold plunging. This really can be this whole broad scope of all of you. And remember that as you begin to present your brand to the media and just in this more public-facing eye. So topics you can speak on, as well as story angles. So as you start to get into pitching, which we're not going to go too deeply into this today, you can start to look at, what are some of the stories or the expert commentary that I could give as an idea to these writers and journalists? And last but not least, really looking at what are some of the best visibility outlets, channels, avenues, as we call them, for your brand. For me, I love speaking. So any opportunity I have to be on a podcast, to be on the stage, to do a workshop for someone else's community, teach at a conference, hold an event, that is the avenue that feels best for me. Don't get me wrong. I also love digital and print publications, and I love speaking more. So you can start to reflect on that for yourself. What feels best? How do I want to show up? So this is what we do all before introducing our brand to the media on podcasts, on stages. We recommend a Visibility on Purpose that you create some sort of folder for yourself, Google Drive, Dropbox, make it easy, so that you can keep everything in one place. That way you can always drag and drop when you're invited to apply to things. Okay, here are our visibility avenues. Now, this is something that we created here at Visibility on Purpose. And there is no right or wrong here. These are just some of the channels, the avenues that you can take when it comes to becoming more visible. Now, many of us are familiar with the social media avenue of visibility, right? There's no barrier to entry. You're going to go on Instagram, you're going to create a new username, and you have a brand and a business. Okay, so typically this looks like you writing content. Maybe it looks like you doing a giveaway. And here at Visibility on Purpose, we always recommend the best strategy is getting in front of other people's audiences, OPA. So lives and interviews on social, extremely important, cross-promotional avenues. The next is really miscellaneous. And I'm starting here because we're not going to focus on these today. Miscellaneous. So I called this ads, emails, referrals, and affiliates, right? And again, referrals and affiliates are smart because it's a collaboration cross-promotional avenue, as well as books. Books are incredible to build your credibility, your authority. If you're in a co-authored book, amazing way to network and get in front of other people's audiences. That's my miscellaneous category. Then we go to podcasts, media press, and stages. Podcast, media, and press are what we're going to focus on today. The visibility avenue of stages can look like conferences, workshops, events, and if this is something that you're looking to start to do, you want to get on the TEDx stage, you want to speak in front of people in person, I recommend that you start getting some speaking under your belt. So maybe you begin with podcasts, maybe you start with interviews, make it easy, but start to build your speaking trail so that when you're asked to submit a speaker reel or a trailer, you've had some practice. It's important. So the visibility avenues that we're really going to speak about today are podcasts and media and press. And both of this we love at Visibility on Purpose because you are getting in front of other people's audiences, which is always a win-win-win. Win for you, win for the other person, and win for the community that you get to share a message with or teach on. It's amazing. Let's go into podcasts here. Now, this is going to be important whether it's podcasts or media and press. Number one, understand your inherent value. And if you went through those steps that I just shared on 2 slides ago, you understand what is your brand summary, you understand what makes you stand out, you understand your story, you understand the topics you can speak on. So you understand your inherent value. You also know your audience. You have to know who you serve. And this is important, especially if podcasts are going to be one of your main strategies. Who do you serve? Who do you want to get in front of? This should be a win-win for both, right? If I serve males in the tech space, I'm probably not going to be getting on podcasts where they have a mostly female audience of new business owners. There's a mismatch. So know your audience. And then you can identify opportunities, and that's what I'm going to bring us through next, okay? So if you're new to being podcasts, to getting on podcasts or being interviewed, I always recommend that you start small, right? Dream big, but start small. So start with your personal network and your social channels. Some of the first podcasts I did back in 2017 and 2018 were people who I'd connected with in the online space. We were friends on social media. They began to see that I was speaking about Ayurveda, yoga, Kundalini, whatever it might have been, and then into business. And they said, hey, let's do a collaboration. I'd love to interview you. So start to get some of those initial podcasts and speaking abilities and opportunities under your belt early on because it's going to build confidence. You're going to understand how you articulate your work because writing something down is very different from speaking something. And you want to find your voice. And the best way that we have found to find your voice is through practice. Here at Visibility on Purpose, we always say that speaking is not a spectator sport. You got to show up, you got to get in the ring, you have to practice, and you have to lean in. You have to take that jump. So begin with your own network, begin with your own social channel. We also recommend going into Facebook groups and online communities. There are a number of Facebook communities where you can essentially pitch yourself, aka introduce your brand, what you do, and again, what are some of those topics that you could easily speak about. In addition, if you have a podcast, you could look for guests in there. So it's this like matchmaker community online. And say you've had a couple of shows under your belt, say you feel really confident talking about your work, you know exactly what you do, you know exactly who you serve, and you want to take it to the next level, you're starting to look for some medium to larger to your shows. And we recommend that you do this just through some research. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of our process there. We go into this deeper in visibility on purpose, but I want everyone today to feel like they have a jumping off point. So one of the research strategies that I love using is a site called listennotes.com. And Listen Notes is this syndication of episodes, of shows, of hosts, of guests. And it's really this database for you to look for certain shows to see what are some of the topics that they've spoken on, as well as you to look at guests and what shows they've been on. So you can do a little bit of reverse searching here. You can go on listennotes.com, type in the name of someone. So I just brought up Gabrielle Bernstein, but maybe you type in Chris Harder or Luke Story or someone who you feel is kind of at that next level for you, and maybe you have similar audiences. That would be important. You want to have a similar audience to this person. So you're going to type their name in, and it's going to curate a list of all the shows that person has been featured on. And there you go. You already have some research. So you're going to look into those shows. You're going to find the host and understand how to apply, whether that's through their website or through an email. You would send a pitch. Again, you're going to introduce your brand. So some of the steps here, you would want to find the contact information, whether it's from your own personal network, whether it's from a website, whether it's online. You're going to craft your pitch. You're going to send your pitch, and you're going to show up and just shine. Remember that podcasts are just such a great way to get in front of people's audiences and to deliver valuable content. We have found that podcasts convert extremely well because when you're a guest on someone else's show and that host has already built an incredible community, gosh, you have such a great opportunity there. And me personally, I've shared this story many times. I have invested thousands of dollars after listening to someone on a podcast, and I converted in one episode. Why did I convert? I resonated with their story. I liked their values, and they gave me the next step. They said, hey, if you like what I'm talking about, you're welcome to join us in this mastermind. I said, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So you have the ability as the guest on the show to sell, but in a very non-salesy way. Because you're not going to be like, join my program. It's more of, this is what I do. This is why I do it. Because you get to share your story. Storytelling sells. Okay, so podcasts, great strategy. Media press is a great way to start to build your online presence and your brand, right? So what happens when someone Googles your name? What comes up? You want it to be your website and places that you've been featured. Because it's one thing for you to talk about yourself, and it's a whole other amazing opportunity when someone else gets to talk about you. And when you are featured on outlets or in magazines or on podcasts or in interviews, it looks pretty good for your brand, okay? So media, print, digital, press, this is a great way to focus on SEO. This is long-term sustainability, longevity of your brand and business online, and for you to take up this precious online real estate. When I talk about media here, I'm talking about TV, print, and digital publications like Forbes by Muddy Green, Inc., Well and Good, Bustle. I'm talking about radio. I'm talking about news stations and smaller magazines, but I guess we would call that print and digital publications. The funny thing about media is most business owners don't really understand how this works. They probably heard of larger brands who have a PR team or a publicist, and there's a caveat to all of this, right? If you are at a place in your business where you can hire a publicist to do this pitching work for you, absolutely do that. A 6-month campaign can look anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000, and they would represent you. They would be writing the stories. They would be finding the contacts, okay? What we teach is that you can do this yourself. You can understand how to introduce your brand to the media. And when you understand how to introduce your brand to the media, gosh, it makes it so much more simple to talk about your business online, to get on a networking call and know what you do, know who you serve, and to just confidently articulate your business in any scenario to convert into more sales. Okay, so that's a caveat. Now, how does the media work? You can really think of this in terms of crowdsourcing. The media is looking for you because writers, journalists, editors, producers, they want to find the best stories for their audiences. So they're looking at trending topics, stories, events, and they're looking for experts like you, expert commentary to support their stories and their angles, okay? But they don't know about you until you introduce yourself. So that's the purpose of a pitch. And this word pitch sounds too Shark Tanky. And if that word overwhelms you, I want you to take that word, throw it out the window, and replace it with introductions. You get to introduce your brand, and that is what a pitch truly, truly is. So what is the strategy? How do we arrive there? Like, what are the next steps? Some of the biggest questions that we get at Visibility on Purpose are, how do I even find the contacts? Like, what story angles should I write about? How do I represent my brand? Like, how do I introduce my brand? How do I write the pitch? And we go much deeper in Visibility on Purpose. But I wanted to give us some next steps, okay? So again, it's just like podcasts. We have to understand our inherent value. So we have to understand what's the brand, what is our story, what are the angles, like really knowing the ins and outs of our business. We have to identify some of those story angles. So we have an amazing freebie at visibilityonpurpose.com/freebie. And it is story angles based on trending events, holidays, seasons throughout the year. So you're welcome to go grab that. You have to know your audience again, and you have to be able to see the opportunities in front of you. So one of the things that you can start with doing is we recommend everyone signs up for HARO, Help a Reporter Out. The second thing that you can begin doing is just beginning to search and find contacts, right? Building relationships with the writers. A simple Google search of Mind Body Green brings you to the Mind Body Green website. Say I'm an astrologer and I'd love to start pitching on, what the moon says about your business. So I can go on Mind Body Green and I can type in astrology. And then it's going to show me what articles are being written on that topic. And I can find the writer. So here we have the writer right there. I would find her email and I would email her a pitch of the story angle and the story idea. Maybe she wants to write a story just on that. Maybe she has another piece she's working on and she can support her story through my value, through my background. Another thing you can do is contact the news. So go on Google, type in New Jersey news sites, and I might find some of the top news sites in New Jersey, and I would find the editors and I would just contact them and say, hey, like this is what we have going on. You can do this with book launches as well. So there are many ways for you to start building these contacts. Twitter is another great place that writers and journalists hang out for their stories. And they might even post a tweet and say, hey, I'm doing a story on this. Do you know anyone? There are many, many options here for you. A lot of this on the internal level is just beginning to take that step forward. And at this point, you might be thinking, wow, this is a lot, or I understand this, but it feels overwhelming, and that's okay, step by step. So come back to our philosophy of dream big, but start small. What are the small steps you can begin taking to understand your brand at a deeper level, to understand the inherent value that you bring, whether it's based on your story, your expertise, your programs, your products, and see the gap in the marketplace. That's business in general. There's a gap, and you get to serve and fill that gap. So after we've identified the contact information and the visibility outlet, we're going to craft a pitch. And this is just a past pitch that I've written. I said, could sharing stories in community be a key element to healing? So I was looking to get on a podcast with this pitch. And very simply, I introduced myself in that first paragraph. I talked about my brand. I talked about what I do. I talked about who I served. The next paragraph, I went a little bit into my story and why I would be a good fit. So pulling out some of those kind of keywords that make someone lean in. I identified the topics I could easily speak on. You can see them right there. I included some contact information, links to past interviews. And one thing I'd probably add here are folder for my headshots. That's helpful. At the end of the day, you want to make this as easy as possible for whoever is receiving your email or your introduction. I've already mentioned Visibility on Purpose, but this is what we do. Visibility on Purpose is a media training school for business owners who want to develop a thought leadership platform. They want to stand out as a brand in a saturated marketplace and share their message in front of new audiences. So that's what we do here. We teach business owners exactly how to represent themselves in community with other business owners. So after listening to this today, I want you to begin to take some next steps. So let's zoom out. We have the dream big. Where do you want to take your business? Where do you want to take your brand? Where do you see yourself? Identify some of your dreams and now just work and walk backward. Nail down your message, right? So that's like step one here. That needs to be extremely clear. When people think of you, is it clear what you do? When people think of you, do they understand some of the things that you can teach on? We want to know our topics and our story angles. We want to identify some of these visibility channels and outlets. We want to introduce ourselves to hosts of podcasts and media contacts. And then ultimately, let's bring it back to the mission and vision. You're not here because you're selling McDonald's hamburgers. You have a business, a message, and a brand that you know needs to get in front of more people. So are you willing to take that next step? Are you willing to put yourself out there? Are you willing to shine, to share, and to impact those who need your message most? Are you willing to do that? I believe in you. We believe in you at Visibility on Purpose. There are more people on this planet who need your work, and never, ever, ever forget it. You can connect with us at Visibility on Purpose. We're on Instagram currently, coming to Pinterest soon. You can go onto our website, visibilityonpurpose.com. You can download our freebie, www.visibilityonpurpose.com/freebie. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so proud of you, and I cannot wait for you and your visibility journey ahead.